welcome to From the Fishbowl, a podcast brought to you from the land of the Darrell peoples, a place where you, the listener, gets unprecedented access to the tales of Judy Hannon MP, the independent member for Wollondilly, her staff, locals and experts in their field. My name's Ben Banasic, I'm the Chief Advisor for Judy, and today we have Judy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we're going to talk about lots of things today, all across the electorate, and it's all about the budget bid.
Yes, very excited to see this coming up. Last year was, very fast after we got elected that the budget got released, but we didn't actually get a chance to put too much input into the budget, whereas this time we've been very proactive and we've got a whole list of things that we'd like government to look at. If we get one or two of them, we'll have been doing really, really well.
And there's also a whole suite of other things behind this as well. So this isn't an exhaustive list of all the budget asks. We ended up doing, I think it was 68 individualised different item code numbers, and each of those then had multiples in them as well. So it's quite a big document. So rather than talk for about 10 hours, we thought we'd...
Just focus on some of the major ones, and it's about cost to government. And there's a couple where we're actually talking about saving government money as well.
Which is really interesting. And I've really enjoyed seeing this process, coming from the independent office and how government is taking it and where they take all these different things, I think is going to be different with each ministry. But I guess we'll go through it. But the listener should just be aware this isn't in order of preference. It's actually in a strange order list because it matches their portfolio makeup at the moment, which is grouped, and it doesn't always make sense.
Doesn't need to make sense in Parliament, that's for sure.
It's government, so I don't think it's meant to make sense a lot of the time, unfortunately. But number one is... Judy?
Major. Obviously the number one thing for me is the Picton bypass, which is really, really interesting, and we've managed to have some meetings with Transport, the Treasury, the people that are actually doing the work on the Picton bypass, and we've agreed with Transport that they'll be giving us some updates along the way, and we're really looking forward to that. I'm hoping that we'll see some money that's been talked about that will get us up to really going out to tenders. So it'll last a bit of time, and I'm hoping to see that shortly. So it's not about planning. We're past that point. We're now up to the engineering stage, and that's happening as we speak.
Yeah, and that's obviously going to take some time. And then beyond that, it'd be safe to assume that that's going to be more than a couple of $1 million project, which means there's more probity checks after that.
There certainly is, and they'll continue to do probity checks, and I'll continue to keep bashing on their doors and on the desk, and hopefully we'll see some significant amount of money, more than $3 million or $1 million, to get us to that point where we want to go to tender.
Yeah, it's scary numbers really, and it's such a long process to go through. And I know we were briefed on it back in 14 as council when they said that that's around about the option.
The sort of money we're looking at is money that we've never, ever seen in the Wollondilly electorate, and they've not shut the door on us at any point along the way. They keep talking to us, and we just keep pushing it along, keep pushing as hard as we can. Yeah.
Now, I guess the question everyone's going to be listening and would want to ask at this point is, when is the shovel going to go in the ground? When is the thing going to be finished? We both don't know. Finish
will take a while. Shovel in ground, I'm hoping that we'll all enjoy that in the next couple of years. Yeah. Some of the things that are slowing it down is some of the pylons are 50 metres tall, and the amount of engineering that's going on. But what I will say is hopefully in the next couple of months we'll see fellas out there in safety, the orange vests. Yep. I like the orange colour. But we'll see them out there measuring and taking measurements and things like that, doing some of that fine work that needs to be done.
So exciting. And once it gets to that process, I think, just so everyone's understanding, it goes through the engineering, and then they've got the proper costings. It then goes into the budget process. You can't withdraw from that point unless it's a major, major withdrawal from government. So we get it in there, and then it's there for life, and it actually gets done, which is great.
I mean, there's some things that we'll see in our lifetime, and there's some things we won't. We won't see the Meldon-Dumbarton, I don't believe, in my lifetime. But the Picton bypass, I'll certainly look forward to driving over it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next one was a procedural thing, and it's really interesting to see how your colleagues have reacted to this. But at the moment, there's a reduction of sitting days in Parliament.
So up till now, I think the minimum's been 18 weeks or, usually it's around 20 weeks a year. And just remember, sitting weeks don't involve usually Mondays and Fridays, although I go in for Mondays to get a pre-sitting week update. But they've cut it back to 15 weeks. There is talk, because of pressure by the independents and the crossbench, that we'll probably get a couple more snuck into the end of the year.
Yep.
I would have actually preferred to see it preloaded in the first part of the year, but we're pushing for that, and hopefully that'll happen.
And it is really good to see that coming across from the entire crossbench, because they're the ones that have said that you're elected to do a job, and it's not.
And without the sitting weeks, we only get certain opportunities along the way, and we want those opportunities to be able to talk what our community wants.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the next one we had, and this goes to the Cabinet Office, it also goes to the Premier's Office, but it's about the growth area that's in Wollondilly and major growth areas. What you're asked for is that those large areas, which are huge developments, they can't just go through without a final check. So we're asking for a checking balance for the Premier's Office for all of these major developments that happen, to make sure that we've got things like water, sewer, transport, roads, emergency service provision, health.
It sounds like a bit of common sense to me.
It does.
Unfortunately, I believe what's happened previously is that developers have been able to get away without some of that infrastructure. And I'm not talking about schools and hospitals here. I'm talking about water and sewerage.
Yep.
We know at this point in time we need a new STP for Wilton. When we talk to Sydney Water, they're talking about a plan for the next 5 years of 5,000 houses. But we all know that we're heading that way very quickly, and we're looking at 13,000, and they have no plan for it. They definitely haven't planned where they're going to put that new STP, and they really need to be, getting on with it, because it'll happen very quickly that those numbers will be outrun. And I'm not happy with the interim trucking sewer out of a new housing development. No. Nobody would say that's acceptable in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got an unstarted town centre. We were both promised, one job, one house. That's never been delivered.
Well, as you know, there's very few jobs in the area, and that promise, I have to say we're very sceptical of it in the first place, but it was taken out of our hands at that particular point. We have no town centre, and I'm really hoping that, this thing will be completed. It was really, ideally, the whole of the area out there would have been planned as one big plan, but unfortunately developers were given the green light to go ahead as favours were presented.
Yeah, and I remember there's a line in your PID where you said, recalling Campbelltown Hospital, on the edge of city, almost in vacant fields, but there it was built, ready for the community to grow around it.
So I remember one of my university jobs were to go out and put pamphlets into new developments talking about clay pipes, believe it or not, and really all those transport things at Blacktown and those areas were there before there was a single house on the ground. What they're giving us is the houses on the grounds without any of the infrastructure. It's just backwards.
Yeah, it's madness. So this ask, I think, it covers with a document that I think many listeners would be aware of, which was a 17-page document that went through to planning that was spoken about at length previously. It covers that, but it also covers any future developments for more than 500 blocks. So we're trying to say that, look, these mistakes did happen in Wollondilly. Let's not do them again.
That's right. We need to catch up, but we then need to be ahead of the game instead of behind it.
Yeah. So it's a big one. We'll see what they say about that. Next thing, and this is something that a friend of both of ours, Roland Ware, used to talk about quite a lot at.
So this is about national parks.
Yes.
We've seen the announcement north of the Great Koala Park, and now we've seen, fortunately, the announcement in the southwest of a national park. These things don't happen very quickly. So one of the things we've been looking at is the people down the Bowral, Mittagong, right down to Kangaloon. There's a lot of area out there that's untouched. It does have a lot of flora and fauna in it and some absolutely beautiful things. What we're really keen to see is that attached to the announcement of the southwest national park announcement to get that continual corridor through the area. I've had the fortunate opportunity to go out into some of that area. I've swum in some absolutely pristine areas that nobody's ever seen, but I'd really like a national park over that. Yeah. It goes all the way down to past my borders, down past Burradoo. But now's the time to look at it before we get any applications to do anything. Yep. Let's protect it now. And a lot of it's Crown land already. Council land, Crown land, protected land. There's also the land surrounding all of the dams. So in the most north part of it, it's just at the back of Tarmore. It's called Bargo Gorge. Yes. And
then all the way down a continual tree canopy, which lasts down to Kangaloon. This actually fixes another request of ours where we were talking about the biodiversity offsets that were put on people's private lands as part of the Wilton development. That's not actually protecting any koala habitat at the moment. That could actually be moved down to some of the lands which can't be completely protected because they're council lands or they're in Aboriginal land claim and there's disputes there. But regardless of that, these lands are never going to get developed. But there's no centralised management, I guess, of them.
No, and it would give an opportunity to have that management, especially if it's all joined up together. It'd be a great opportunity. And as we know, it takes a couple of years to get a national park established. Yep. Some of these areas will be much easier than some of the other areas they've been looking at. Yes. And now's the time to combine them all together and make sure that they're preserved going forward.
Yeah, so it's major big ask. I think it's something that will be worked on for a number of years, but I'm really excited to see it on the list as well.
Same here.
Yeah, cool. Okay, next we had a request for the STP for Wilton and Appin to be beyond 5,000 lots.
And I think we've already talked about that along the way. And it's specifically about that STP. We want to know where it is, we want to know when it's coming, and we want all the information.
Yep. So costings, it's approximately 764 million up to 1.7 billion, depending on which report you believe from Sydney Water or which one you're reading and which Greater Macarthur Plan, etc. But that's roughly what the pricing is, which is
And this is money that we've never seen the likes of before in the Wollondilly, but this is money we've been deserving for a long time.
Absolutely. Next one. And this was a sort of left field one, but it was something that I know has been worked on a little bit by the community and some people in the background. But there's a request for $1 million for Wollondilly Council for the fixing of the Warragamba tip to change it into either park, completely cap, or opening up to solar panels.
This is a problem for councils when they've had a tip that's now closed to actually rehabilitate it and get some kind of use out of it. Yep. And we've got this large amount of area up at Warragamba that's just sitting there. It does need to have some work done, and it's very expensive for council to do that. So we're asking for some help for the council, and who knows what we can get out of it. Maybe a park or something will be appropriate.
Absolutely. And I provided details of the Peace Park reinvigoration to the Minister as an example for that. And that used to be an old quarry at Ashfield, which some people would know. It had a lot of waste on site, and then it's made into this beautiful park called Peace Park.
It would be really nice to see.
Yeah. Next, Wollondilly Walk from Warragamba Dam.
So kind of talking about the Warragamba area at the same time in the north of the electorate. Some years ago when I was mayor, the discussion came up about a great Wollondilly Walk. We're getting the new airport there, and people these days travel, miles. I've been to Scotland to do a walk or to Greece to do a walk. And we have the opportunity of getting a walk that goes from Warragamba Dam all the way through to Thelmere Lakes and perhaps beyond. I've actually walked it. We took councillors out there and got permission, and it was amazing. It was very, very beautiful. Unfortunately, at the moment, the Sydney Water and Water New South Wales are very protective of their land, and we're not asking to tread right through the middle of it, but just down the boundary of it, so we've got some safe areas, and it would be a huge tourist attraction. When we talked about doing it before and we did it, the number of people that wanted to come along on that walk was just phenomenal, and it would be good for tourism for the area as well.
And my understanding is some sections are walkways at the moment.
Yeah,
some are
can.
not. So
You can walk some of them, but it'd be really nice to join it all up so it became a big adventure.
Formalisation about it as well, which is, I guess, goes back to the similarities of that national park. Once you have that aspect formalised, written down on paper, then we can go for grants and you can go for different things. But at the moment, with just an idea, there's nothing to go for. So.
Yep, and that would be really lovely to see.
Awesome. All right. Now, to talk about a saving. The Reconstruction Authority was tasked and created to look at emergency services and reconstruction, as well as, it's about part of the resilience framework, basically.
Yeah. And some of it, we know, was put there in particular to look at raising the dam wall at Warragamba, which has been done away with. But it's time now that we cut the Reconstruction Authority away from that, because that is no longer going to happen. Yep. So that needs to have some cuts made to it and whatever resources redistributed to elsewhere.
The actual, so what the ask has been is the redivergence of people that are working currently on the 2017 Resilient Communities document, which says, point one, classify what the risk is to the flood communities, and number two, work on plans to raise the dam wall. The government's categorically said that that's not going to happen, $3 billion cost, and won't actually fix anything in the Hawkesbury. What Judy's asked for is that to be rediverted to people who actually work towards disasters which affect our area, such as fire.
And if you want to talk about another saving along the way while we're on savings, we have a look at Tarmore Primary School that's absolutely flooded with children and lacking classroom space. And at the same time, we've got Buxton that's got classrooms that are not completed at the moment. Some families actually live closer to Buxton, but because of the way the territories are drawn, those children have to attend Tarmore. If we could simply realign those boundaries, or in fact allow people some choice along those boundaries, we could actually spread those students into classrooms that are sitting there vacant at the moment. So we could actually save the government some money in that respect.
Yeah, so that flips on to that next ask that we did specifically say, so widen that Buxton area to include Southern Tarmore or Thalmere, and as you say, it's silly for Tarmore to be overflowing and them to say, to us, we need more classrooms. But then just down the road, 8.5 minute drive, 3 empty classrooms.
And we have fantastic staff and teachers in all of those, in both of those schools, but we've got vacant classrooms in some. Yeah. Why wouldn't you fill those up?
And this is the Department of Education. We've always done this. These boundaries which are just drawn by bureaucrats somewhere, and they just don't make sense locally. So, we massive growth area, you have to make some changes for that. Cool. So there were a couple of savings that we had. Going on, there's a big list. We've got 17 of them, but we're more than halfway. New pack for Wollondilly.
So
what's a pack?
This is a police area command. Excellent. It used to be a LAC, a local area command. Yep. I know that we've always argued that we deserve a 24/7 police station in the north end of the electorate. But in fact, what I'm asking is not a 24/7 police station. I want a police area command that then spreads out through the electorate. What I'm asking there, and everybody would know that there's already police, they own real estate in Wollondilly, in Picton in particular, unused buildings that sit in the main streets. And what I'm asking is to combine that all together so that we have an area command that sits somewhere within our electorate so police can reach people in a much faster way. I also know that police would love to come and work here. It's a beautiful area. It might take them out of some places in the city and even Narellan, but I want them to come out here and look after our community. Yeah.
And I don't think it would be untoward of us to say that we've spoken to the union and local police about this, and they've said that actually Picton is their preferred area for a pack, which I found very interesting because I think that they recognise the existing villages are big enough to warrant each extra policing, but also we've got the new villages that
So
are
it's
coming
not
on board.
all about new villages. We've all been sitting out here waiting for the facilities to come to us for a long time before we even got these new areas. But I showed this to the Premier the other day as it was. We had the Premier come out to the Wollondilly for a day because I don't believe there's anything like seeing it with your own eyes. And to watch him walk up to the police station, open the screen door and knock and not have any response just showed him, how we are lacking, not just police, but as I said, we want a full local area command.
Absolutely.
Or police area command, as they call it now.
Yeah. And that's so that the police aren't assigned then to an outlying police station and then pulled into another area, as is happening at the Narellan all the time. So even if we ask for a 24-hour police station at Picton or again, but wherever it's going to be, my understanding is that the police will then get assigned, so it'll go 2 to 4 office or whatever you have.
No, we want the head office in Wollondilly.
Yes.
It has to be here, so they're assigned here and they can't be drawn away.
Yep. Cool. Right. Another big piece of infrastructure that you've asked for is a second high school, actually for a shovel to go in the ground for it and for it to be built at Wilton.
Yeah, this is probably a little bit more tricky at the moment, especially when we don't have the plans for some of the things like the town centre. But I think we'd all agree that we actually need a second high school now. And whilst I'd love to fight for one in the north and one in the south and east and west, we do have an opportunity that should present itself in a reasonable amount of time in the Wilton area. And we'll be fighting to get the resources. And I'd really keen to have a public high school.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. That is the ask. We're aware of, I think the Catholic Education has said that they're interested in going into the area, but that's not what this ask is about.
I mean, with cost of living these days, people extend themselves to the point where they're shifting out to these new areas to try and get relatively slightly cheaper housing. It's not that cheap, but cheaper. And yet if they're forced into areas where A, the schools are a long way away, and B, the only opportunity is private schools, it doesn't fit with that cost of living issue.
Now, a major ask, which then got downgraded to a supplementary ask because we didn't get the paperwork on time, was the hall for Picton High School.
So that's pretty exciting. In the last couple of months I've been really lucky. Not only did I have the Premier there last week, but I had the Education Minister, the Deputy Premier, Prue Carr, out to Picton High School. I have to say, each time they've come out, the school students there have been amazing with their welcome and guided tours, really, of the school and the facilities. Both the Premier and the Deputy Premier have been very concerned by the rebuild. The rebuild has given us classrooms with no walls, which is very hard for teachers to, you try and teach a class when you've got 3 other classes in the same space. It's very, very difficult. Or sets of stairs that are counted as classrooms. So I do note the Premier in particular said we want walls, which is great. But one of the amazing things was to walk both of them into this school hall shell. That's all I can call it at the moment because it's literally been cleaned out. And if anybody looks at our Facebook, they'll see the pictures of the inside of that hall. And we're very lucky that the Premier has announced that from third term there will be work on completing that hall. Now, while I know that hall's not big enough for the number of students we've got, at least we'll get a hall that students can sit their HSC and we can have some formalities in. It's the very least that our student and our community should be expecting.
Yeah. So it was meant to be refurbished as part of the wider school refurbishment. The company that was chosen to fix the hall goes belly up.
Yep. And it's sat there. I mean, anybody, you kind of can't see it unless you look for it, but this fence has been sitting around this school for years now. And so those students who've also been through the difficult rebuild have not had a hall for many years now, and so it's time enough.
3 years was the time. So 1 year under yourself, 2 years under the previous member. You come in, we had representations from teachers and from some concerned parents, I know, as well as admin support staff that came and saw you. Following from that, there were some letters that were written. You invited the Education Minister out. She walked into the hall and I think you said...
I was shocked.
Yeah.
They were really shocked.
That was November last year.
Very, very shocked. And it takes a while to arrange for these people to come out. But when they got there, you know, the students and the teachers were putting on a really, really good show. But when the students took her into that hall and she was just gobsmacked, and the Premier likewise. You can't help it. From the outside, it doesn't look as bad as what it looks from the inside. But please have a look at my photos on Facebook and you'll see.
Yeah. So that November until now, lots of work has happened back and forth with letters and such. But yeah, we had it actually prepped at this point. It was going to be a budget ask. And then we were told, actually, no, the work is going to happen, but we've still put it in the longer list because...
We'll keep it there.
Yeah, we want to make sure it's actually done. And I think that's the cynicism of both of us being working with these departments for a while. On to something else for education, a fence for Warragamba School is what you've asked for.
So,
they've been asking for it for a while.
It's something that the community up there have been asking about for a while. Warragamba School's actually surrounded by roads. It's not just one side. Every single side literally hits a road, and it's about a protective fence for the students there.
Yeah, so we did an estimation based on some other schools, but they'll have to work out the actual costings of that. Now, something that's sticky that councils look at, and I know a lot of regional councils have complained about this, the Regional Development Act and existing mine amendment, which is a big mouthful, but it also means royalties for rejuvenation fund. Basically, it's the mine fund money that goes to the state government and then given to councils.
So some time ago, there was some work done by Cole Mitchell and Michael Benasic. They went to some meetings, and in Western Australia, the councils are given royalties, a percentage of royalties regarding mining. They fought for it, and we actually got a small amount given to us, and that's been turned back as far as I know, and we want that reinstated. Our community has, you know, many people that work in the mines, and we have trucks and all those things on our roads, and we believe we need a share of the royalties.
Yeah, and the provision of that actual act, the understanding is that it actually goes to the areas where there is damage and such, and it seems to be pointed towards council areas where open cut mines are, and we are a council which has got underground mines.
And we still feel the effect of it.
Absolutely.
In subsidence and all sorts of things, all sorts of ways, so we deserve our share.
That's right. All right, down south and onto health, Barrel Hospital, you've asked for a new clinical services plan and a cancer centre.
So it's been really, really interesting in that Barrel Hospital has been very much a political football. It's been used and abused a little bit in that it's had various promises along the way of what state government were going to do. You know, we've been talking about new buildings, and we have got one new building, but none of the stages that were promised have actually been delivered. So we're actually getting a bit of retrofitting happening down there at the moment. And at some point in the previous government, those rebuilds got lost. Don't know where, but they're certainly not in anybody's agenda nor health infrastructure at the moment. The one thing we've been able to negotiate out of that for the time being is to look at a new clinical services plan to see what sort of things can be done in the hospital as we speak. And I'll be working with the CEO down there to look at that. The other thing we've been looking at is some cancer treatment chemotherapy units. Any of you out there know I've had an experience 20 years ago which involved chemotherapy, and I understand that people need to be near their homes. They need to be somewhere where somebody can just drop them in for their treatment, and you don't want to be travelling miles when you feel as lousy as you can. So that's another ask for some cancer treatment chairs where you could sit in. A patient receiving chemotherapy may sit there for half an hour, or it might be for 8 hours. But I want it delivered locally. Yeah,
and the full cancer care would actually include the multidiscipline, the oncology, so there's lots of different elements of it. So it's a one-in centre, because at the moment what happens if you're from the region and you get treated as a patient through Barrel or Campbelltown, you have to travel around for lots of different tests all over the place, which is disruptive. And you know, chemotherapy comes quite regularly when you're on that system, and it's for quite a few months. So you don't want to be travelling out of area for that period of time. The other thing, just on the clinical services plan, it's interesting that they're looking at all of those old figures of growth that hasn't even been updated to look at the new growth figures in Wollondilly, let alone Wingecarribee.
Well, I think that's really the issue overall. You know, when they look at figures at Fairfield and Campbelltown and Liverpool, they actually count our people in that. They don't separate them out. And I do believe that we probably have as many people as some of those hospitals stand alone on themselves. So we're asking for those services to come back into Barrel Hospital.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Another health ask, and this came up 12 months ago. I came on board on the 14th of April. We went down to a meeting with Larry Whipper down at Community Links, and we met the PACER clinician, which is an amazing position. So
this person that's down there, when there's an issue that's usually a mental health issue perhaps, which is one of the biggest users of emergency services or even police services, this clinician who's a PACER, I don't know what you call them, mental health trained person, can actually go out on site to people's homes or wherever the issue is actually happening and help that person through a process that usually avoids them going to emergency or even into police. So this is only for half of my electorate, and it works so well. I want it over the whole electorate. That's what's really important, because we can actually, while it costs a little money to employ these people, it can actually save money at the end of the day, saving emergency services and police action.
Yeah, so 80% deferral rate is what I remember from emergency service presentation. So 80% success rate, that is, and it's only one person that's covered at the moment. So PACER is it's actually still in trial. It's in trial in Campbelltown. And that's for the Campbelltown LGA area only. So it does cover part of Appin accordingly to their documents, but up there they say no, it's on council boundary. In the south, they've defined Wollondilly as Wingecarribee council boundaries, but that person, as they're employed, and we met him down in Barrel, says he hops in a car sometimes, meets with a patient in Barrel. Sometimes it does have to go to a hospital. They go to Campbelltown. They drive through the rest of your electorate, but they can't service someone who lives in Yanderra.
That's the crazy part and the lack of common sense. Nice. I'm asking for that PACER person across the whole of the Wollondilly electorate.
It's pretty easy. All right, final two things. Final three things. A couple of transport stuff. So at Bargo, opposite the Bargo Public School, the land there is being used as a car park for the school and overflow car parking, if you like. There's no park on that side of Bargo that's accessible for the kids. Yet ARTC, which is the people that rent that part of the track and who have it rented until 2060 or something like that, they've got buckets of land and it's not used.
So it's not only the area that's used for the car park, there's other areas there. And what we're keen to do is to get that area and turn it into a park, a proper park. It'll obviously have to have the correct fencing because there will be cars going in and out on pick-up and drop-off area. But with the proper facility there and the safety areas, it'll be a really good resource for the people coming out of school at Bargo and just of a weekend, people that live on that side of the line.
Yeah. And so Councillor Paul Rogers came in and spoke to you about this, and from that representation there's been an additional list that added to it. So basically the request is for the land to go for a peppercorn lease, or $1 per year of arrangement with the state and council. And the purpose of the land swap would be for a commuter car park, the park, as you said, the men's shed possibly, and associated.
So it was really interesting to have a councillor come in and discuss those sort of things with me, but really important to bring up local issues in local area. And having a park in Bargo on that side of the line is really important.
Yep, absolutely. We've got your Malden-Dumbarton link in there as well. So you're asking for, you're not asking for completion of the line. We should be clear on that. We want to have studies.
So I'm not so sure I'm ever going to see the Malden-Dumbarton line completed in my lifetime. I just think it's a shame that government these days don't think ahead of, a big project that can deliver an amazing opportunity to the whole people of New South Wales. But what I've asked for is the Malden-Dumbarton to have a look at the old information, re-examine it when you consider how many houses have now popped up along that line. and I want them to have a look at, perhaps I'll be pushing for a new business case study. And I think it's something that would be really good to push through to the committees that look at transport, because connectivity, whilst we don't have some infrastructure, if we were able to hop on public transport and get to that infrastructure, that would also help.
Yeah. So those old studies, it really was, it didn't cover everything, but also it was ill-timed because it was right before all the growth, and we didn't even have the airport decided then.
Well, no, none of those things were decided, and I was involved in the pre-feasibility study, and the limitations that they put on us to do that, and it still added up. At the end of the day, it still was worthwhile. And have a look at the university study swirl. The business case stacks up. So, you know, I want them to revisit those and put the context of the new airport, of the fact that we've got this population increase in Macarthur South, and let's have a look and see what it comes out. I have not more than a gut feeling that it'll seem very positive.
Oh, for sure. And then that's not even counting the freight aspects in the country area, and we get complaints about that because you're part of the Transport Committee.
Yeah.
These country areas, they're annoyed because it's the stacking of the lines.
So at the moment, when places like Cowra and Dubbo send their goods down to the port, it actually has to go in via the city line. And there's a curfew for when the passengers, in business times when people are going in and out of the city. Mind you, that curfew is extending because as we get population that are on those train lines more. So the product has to sit and wait for those curfews to be finished to travel in towards the city and then down the Illawarra line. And the Illawarra line, I'm not even sure whether it's running at the moment with the few floods and things we've had. So if the Meldon-Dumbarton line was in place, these goods and services could get from country New South Wales straight down and onto the port.
Sure, absolutely. All right, last but not least, cycleways. I'm amazed that there's still no cycleway going past Chevalier College in the south of the electorate. And then up in the north of the electorate, you've got the retirement village in Thelmiatara Gardens, which is not connected to the township. You can sort of walk on the side of the road at both of these, but that's not really...
Well, and neither is that safe,
No.
Especially down the Chevalier. Chevalier and Oxley have both been talking to me about the fact that that road is so dangerous at the moment. And if we got a cycleway, we'd actually get some pedestrian safety barriers at the same time. But, we talk about children not walking to school or riding to school anymore. If we don't have pathways or cycleways there, how can we expect it? Do we want them on the roads? Do we want that danger? Certainly not. So we want the completion of those. And when we look at the retirement village in Thelmere, we get people that are on walking frames or in wheelchairs who just want to walk in to get some groceries, milk and bread.
There's a couple of mobility scooter people that I know that they go over the bridge, which is just near Lynn Gordon Reserve. It doesn't look like you can get over it, but you can. And amazingly, they cross the road on those verges, and it's so dangerous.
Yeah, and I have to go to council quite often because the areas they're walking through, the grass is getting really, really high, and it's not even walkable through. And when we had summer, a few of them were worried about snakes through that territory as well.
Yeah, it's not good.
The cycleway needs to be completed.
But coincidentally, both of these are roughly 1.2 kilometres each. I know there's one at the north and one at the south of the electorate, but we didn't actually aim for that. They just managed to be exactly the same length. So we've put in a matching bid for both. So that finishes off what was the major asks, and then there was lots and lots of minor things, as I said.
So maybe I'll just talk to you briefly as we finish off about the fact that we did get the Premier out here last week. When we made a speech, they frustrated me. Both sides of Parliament frustrated me. They continued to talk about things in their own electorates or surrounding areas, but not one of them mentioned anything in the Wollondilly.
This is your public interest debate. Yeah.
In my public interest debate. I got so frustrated, I probably felt like swearing. I think I called them all pork chops at the end of the day because literally I said, you don't know what you're talking about, and invited them to come down to the Wollondilly and see it with their own eyes. I did say come on public transport, and everybody appreciated that was a joke when they had a look. But we did get the Premier and Minister for Roads came out here last week, managed to take the Premier and the Minister for Roads and stand them on Victoria Bridge. It was hilarious, actually. Because when I talked about the fact the bridge is owned by the state government and, it has to be looked at all the time to check the safety of it. And when a car went over and the bridge shook, the roads minister you could have told me that first, and he looked horrified. I think he thought he was going for a swim in Stone Quarry Creek or I don't exactly know what. But it was so important to differentiate the Wilton interchange and the Picton bypass ask, because they don't even understand us. They get them mixed up. Obviously, we got to take the Premier out to the school hall to Wilton to have a look at the fact that Wilton has areas that are developing so fast but no infrastructure. And we even got to take him as far up as Silverdale to have a look at the SEP that got imposed upon our community to take away the ability to build a secondary dwelling or even a granny flat in a backyard. So it was most impressive. I have had the opposition leader say he's going to come out, and certainly some shadow ministers are talking about coming. The Premier and the Roads Minister are talking about coming back out with the Planning Minister in the next couple of weeks to look at the Wilton interchange. But I'm really glad they come out, because seeing it with your own eyes is the only way to experience. Mind you, you can't but fall in love with the Wollondilly electorate. The Premier's eyes looking at the beautiful green hills was something else. I did also cheekily develop a map with the Wollondilly electorate on and his own electorate of Cogra.
His a one-to-one scale.
On a one-to-one scale, and it looked like a pimple on a mountain.
Yeah.
Just to give him an idea of how far and how wide we are spread. So that was really exciting. The more I get them out here, I'm just trying to get them to know the Wollondilly better. So when I complain about something or ask for something, they understand what it is.
Yeah. It was so good to see not only yourself, saying what you thought needed to be done locally, but locals also coming up, just randomly stopping in the street and saying, what they thought to the Premier and feeling the comfortable, like being able to do that with you there.
It was good. It was really good. I also hope, and obviously most of that was in the north of the electorate, but the Premier has told me he'll come back and go to the south of the electorate. And I'm really excited to take him out, show him perhaps where we want that national park in Mittagong. I'd really like him to visit Bowral High School and also the Bowral Hospital. I think one of the staffers of his said, can we go to those cafes in Bowral? I think that's what he was keen to do. But I am really excited to take him down there and show them the needs down there as well.
Yeah, it's just an unlimited list of things that we can show. And I know that their time is very thin, but I think that you chose very well across what we could do for a day. It was really, really good to see.
But I look forward to the south as well. And input from community is really important too. The number of people we have that come into our office at Tamor and help us with some of these issues, give us background information, that's all valued.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that, unless there's anything else, we might close off.
No, and hopefully we won't be too long before we do another podcast, hopefully with some exciting news after the budget comes out.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you.